Welcome to an exploration of one of life's most perplexing questions. Why do the worst people seem to succeed? From ruthless politicians to manipulative corporate tycoons, history and our daily lives are filled with examples of individuals who climb to the top through questionable means. To unpack this, we'll dive into the philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche, whose ideas on power, morality, and human nature cut through the noise to reveal uncomfortable truths. This lesson plan is designed to keep you hooked, offering deep insights into Nietzsche's thought while connecting it to the world we live in today. Nietzsche's philosophy challenges us to rethink what success and power really mean. His concepts, like the will to power, master and slave morality, and the Übermensch, provide a framework for understanding why certain people rise to prominence, often at the expense of others. But this isn't just a dry academic exercise. We'll explore real-world examples, from historical figures like Napoleon to modern-day influencers, to see how Nietzsche's ideas play out. By the end, you'll have a clearer understanding of power dynamics, why bad people sometimes win, and how you can navigate this reality without losing your integrity. A quick note: this lesson assumes no prior knowledge of Nietzsche. We'll break down his ideas in plain language with relatable analogies and stories to keep things engaging. Our goal is to make you think, question, and maybe even laugh as we wrestle with these big ideas. Let's get started by setting the stage. What does it mean to call someone the worst? And why does their success bother us so much? Key question to hook audience. Have you ever wondered why the loudest, most selfish jerk in the room often gets the promotion, the fame, or the power? Nietzsche has answers, and they might surprise you. The problem. Why does this feel so unfair? Let's begin with the gut punch. You've seen it before. The coworker who lies and backstabs their way to a corner office. The politician who manipulates voters yet wins elections. The social media influencer who peddles nonsense but rakes in millions. Why does this happen? Why does it feel like the universe rewards the worst among us? This section sets up the emotional and intellectual stakes. We'll explore the universal frustration of watching bad people succeed, using relatable scenarios to draw listeners in. For example, imagine a high school bully who grows up to become a CEO, while the kind, hard-working kid next door struggles. This taps into a shared sense of injustice that primes the audience for Nietzsche's perspective. Next, we'll define the worst people. Are they evil, selfish, or just playing the game better than the rest of us? We'll introduce the idea that our judgment of good and bad is shaped by cultural and moral norms Nietzsche challenges. To keep things engaging, we'll use a historical case study. Julius Caesar, charismatic, ambitious, and ruthless. Caesar conquered Rome, but was assassinated for his power grab. Was he the worst, or just a master of power? This sets up Nietzsche's view that power, not morality, often drives success. We'll also touch on modern psychology to ground the discussion. Studies show humans are wired to notice unfairness. It's called the inequity aversion principle. When we see someone undeserving succeed, it triggers outrage. But is this outrage justified, or are we missing something? Nietzsche argues we are. His philosophy suggests power isn't about fairness. It's about who can wield it effectively. This segues into our next section, where we dive into his core ideas. Engagement tool, pause and ask. Who's someone in your life or the news who seems to succeed despite being the worst? What makes their success sting? This invites personal reflection, keeping listeners invested. Nietzsche's big idea, the will to power. Now, we get to the heart of Nietzsche's philosophy, the will to power. This is the engine driving human behavior, and it explains why certain people, no matter how bad, rise to the top. In this section, we'll unpack this concept in a way that's clear, relatable, and gripping. The will to power isn't just about dominating others. It's the fundamental drive to assert oneself, create, and overcome obstacles. Think of it like a river carving through a mountain, not because it's evil, but because it's unstoppable. Nietzsche believed this drive shapes everything: art, politics, relationships, even morality. For him, power isn't money or fame. It's the ability to shape reality to your will. To make this concrete, we'll use an analogy. Imagine two chefs in a kitchen. One is obsessed with perfecting their craft, pushing boundaries, and creating bold new dishes, will to power. The other just follows recipes to get by. Who's more likely to become a Michelin star chef? The first, because their drive to create and excel outshines the second's complacency. Now, what if that first chef is arrogant or manipulative? Does their talent still win out? Nietzsche says yes. Power doesn't care about your character. We'll explore historical examples to illustrate. Take Napoleon Bonaparte, a short, ambitious Corsican who conquered Europe through sheer willpower, cunning, and vision. He wasn't a saint. He betrayed allies and caused millions of deaths, but his will to power made him unstoppable until his downfall. We'll contrast him with a good figure like Abraham Lincoln, who also wielded power, but through moral conviction. This comparison shows the will to power isn't inherently bad. It's how it's expressed that matters. To keep things dynamic, we'll weave in a modern example: a tech mogul like Elon Musk. Brilliant, polarizing, and relentless, Musk embodies the will to power in his drive to colonize Mars or revolutionize cars. Critics call him ruthless or erratic, yet his vision reshapes industries. Why? Because, per Nietzsche, power rewards those who act boldly, not those who play nice. We'll also address a common objection. Isn't the will to power just an excuse for selfishness? Nietzsche would argue no. It's about self-overcoming, not petty ego. But he'd also admit it can look ugly when wielded by the unscrupulous. This sets up the next section, where we explore why the worst often excel at this game. Engagement tool. Ask, what's something you've achieved by pushing past fear or doubt? That's your will to power at work. This connects the concept to listeners' lives. Master versus slave morality. Why bad people win. Here's where Nietzsche gets spicy. He argues our ideas of good and bad aren't universal truths. They're inventions shaped by power struggles. In this section, we'll dive into his distinction between master morality and slave morality, which explains why the worst people often outmaneuver the good. Master morality is the mindset of the strong, confident, and creative. It values traits like courage, ambition, and pride, qualities of those who shape the world. Think of a lion. It doesn't apologize for hunting. It acts according to its nature. In contrast, slave morality emerges from the weak, who resent the strong and redefine good as humility, kindness, and obedience to undermine their oppressors. This is the morality of the herd, designed to keep the powerful in check. Nietzsche's point? The worst people succeed because they embrace master morality, or at least mimic it. They don't let guilt, fear, or societal norms hold them back. To illustrate, we'll use a fictional example: Cersei Lannister from Game of Thrones. Ruthless and unapologetic, she seizes power in a world that punishes weakness. Is she bad? Yes, by slave morality standards. But by master morality, she's a force of nature, bending reality to her will. We'll ground this in history with Genghis Khan. Brutal and feared, he built the largest empire ever by valuing strength over sentiment. His success wasn't about being good, it was about mastering power dynamics. Compare this to modern corporate sharks, say a CEO, who cuts jobs to boost stock prices. Society calls them heartless, but Nietzsche might see them as modern masters, unbound by slave morality's guilt. To keep listeners engaged, we'll address the discomfort this creates. Isn't slave morality valuable? Doesn't it protect the vulnerable? Nietzsche would say yes, but it also shackles the bold. The worst succeed because they reject these shackles, acting with audacity while others hesitate. We'll use a lighter example. Reality TV stars. They thrive by being shameless, leveraging attention, a form of power, while nicer people cringe. Engagement tool. Ask, have you ever held back because you didn't want to seem too much? What might have happened if you acted boldly? This prompts self-reflection. The Übermensch, a new way to think about success. So, if the worst succeed by mastering power, are we doomed to become jerks to win? Not quite. Nietzsche offers a third path, the Übermensch, often translated as overman or superhuman. This section explores this ideal and how it redefines success beyond good, evil, or cynicism. The Übermensch is someone who transcends conventional morality to create their own values. They're not bound by master or slave morality, but forge a unique path through self-overcoming. Think of them as a sculptor chiseling their life into art, unswayed by society's applause or boos. The Übermensch isn't about dominating others, but mastering oneself. To make this vivid, we'll use an analogy. Imagine a surfer riding a massive wave. They don't fight the ocean like a master, or fear it like a slave. They dance with it, turning chaos into beauty. The Übermensch does this with life, embracing its challenges to create meaning. We'll explore examples. Nietzsche admired figures like Goethe, the German poet and polymath, who lived richly, creating art and ideas without bowing to norms. A modern Übermensch might be someone like Prince, the musician who defied genre, gender, and industry rules to craft a singular legacy. These figures show success doesn't require being the worst. It requires being authentic and fearless. We'll contrast this with the worst who succeed through power but lack depth, like a corrupt politician who wins elections but leaves no lasting impact. The Übermensch seeks power to create, not just to dominate. This distinction offers hope. You can wield power without losing your soul. To keep it practical, we'll discuss how to cultivate Übermensch traits. Embrace failure as growth. Question societal truths. Pursue what sets your soul on fire, not what others expect. We'll use a story. A young artist who quits a stable job to chase their dream, facing hardship but finding fulfillment. This inspires listeners to rethink success. Engagement tool. Ask, what's one rule or expectation you'd break to live more authentically? How would that feel? This encourages bold thinking. Navigating power. Practical lessons from Nietzsche. Now, let's bring it home. How do we live in a world where the worst often win without becoming one of them? This section distills Nietzsche's ideas into actionable insights, keeping the tone practical and empowering. Embrace your will to power. Don't shy away from ambition. Channel your drive into something meaningful, like a passion project or career goal. Example, a teacher who starts a nonprofit to reform education using power for good. Question, morality, recognize when good behavior is just fear of judgment. Ask yourself, am I holding back to please others? Example, a woman who negotiates a raise despite being called pushy claims her power. Overcome resentment. Nietzsche warns against resentment, bitterness toward those who succeed. Instead of envying the worst, focus on your growth. Example, a startup founder who learns from a rival's shady tactics without copying them. Create your values. Like the Übermensch, define success on your terms. Is it wealth, impact, freedom? Example, a couple who downsizes to travel the world, ignoring society's bigger is better mantra. Accept life's unfairness. Power isn't fair, and Nietzsche says that's okay. Focus on what you control, your actions and mindset. Example: an athlete who loses to a cheater but trains harder, finding pride in their effort. We'll use stories to illustrate each point, like a whistleblower who risked their career to expose corruption, showing power through courage. We'll also address pitfalls. Don't confuse Nietzsche's ideas with justifying harm. Power should uplift, not crush. Engagement tool. Ask, what's one small step you can take this week to claim your power without stepping on others? This leaves listeners motivated. Reframing success and power. We've journeyed through Nietzsche's radical ideas to answer why the worst seem to succeed. From the will to power to master and slave morality to the Übermensch, we've seen that power, not goodness, often drives success, but this isn't a call to cynicism. Nietzsche challenges us to wield power creatively, authentically, and boldly without becoming the worst ourselves. The truth: the world rewards those who act decisively, whether their motives are pure or not. But you have a choice. You can resent the game, play it ruthlessly, or redefine it like an Übermensch. By embracing your drive, questioning norms, and creating your path, you can succeed on your terms. Let's end with a call to action. Think of one area in your life where you've held back. Maybe it's a dream, a tough conversation, or a bold move. Channel Nietzsche's spirit and take a step toward it. The worst may win sometimes, but the best version of you can win too. Final hook. Nietzsche didn't just explain power, he showed us how to own it. What will you do with yours?